CSX Transportation is a Class I railroad in the United States. The main subsidiary of the CSX Corporation, the railroad is headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, and owns about 21,000 route miles. CSX operates one of the three Class I railroads serving most of the East Coast, the other two being the Norfolk Southern Railway and Canadian Pacific Railway. It also serves the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec. Together CSX and Norfolk Southern Railway have a duopoly over all east-west freight rail traffic east of the Mississippi River. As of October 1, 2014, CSX's total public stock value was slightly over $32 billion. History. CSX Transportation was formed on July 1, 1986, by combining the Chassis System and Seaboard System Railroad. The originator of the Seaboard System was the former Seaboard Airline Railroad, which previously merged Atlantic Coast Line Railroad in 1967, and later Louisville and Nashville Railroad, as well as several smaller subsidiaries such as the Clinchfield Railroad, Atlanta and West Point Railroad, Monon Railroad and the Georgia Railroad. The origin of the Chassis System was the former Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, which had merged with the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, and Western Maryland Railroad. On June 23, 1997, CSX and Norfolk Southern Railway filed a joint application with the Surface Transportation Board for authority to purchase, divide, and operate the assets of the 11,000-mile Conrail, which had been created in 1976 by bringing together several ailing northeastern railway systems into a government-owned corporation. On June 6, 1998, the STB approved the CSX-AEURO-NS application and set August 22, 1998, as the effective date of its decision. CSX acquired 42% of Conrail's assets, and NS received the remaining 58%. As a result of the transaction, CSX's rail operations grew to include some 3,800 miles of the Conrail system. CSX began operating its trains on its portion of the Conrail network on June 1, 1999. CSX now serves much of the eastern U.S., with a few routes into nearby Canadian cities. The name came about during merger talks between Chassis System, Incorporated and Seaboard System Railroad, Incorporated, commonly called Chassis and Seaboard. The company chairman said it was important for the new name to include neither of those names because it was a partnership. Employees were asked for suggestions, most of which consisted of combinations of the initials. At the same time, a temporary shorthand name was needed for discussions with the Interstate Commerce Commission. CSC was chosen but belonged to a trucking company in Virginia. CSM was also taken. The lawyers decided to use CSX, and the name stuck. In the public announcement, it was said that CSX is singularly appropriate. C can stand for chassis, S for seaboard, and X, which actually has no meaning. But the X could be used as a short term for the word express, taking off the E, giving out XPRESS, putting the X in use. The T had to be added to CSX when used as a reporting mark because reporting marks that end in X means that the car is owned by a leasing company or private car owner. Its current slogan, "How Tomorrow Moves," appeared in 2008. In 2014, Canadian Pacific Railway approached CSX with an offer to merge the two companies, but CSX declined and Canadian Pacific made no more attempts to merge. On July 2, 2015, a freight train carrying hazardous materials went off of its tracks. Over 5,000 citizens were displaced from their homes within a 2-mile radius. CSX Divisions. CSX operates 2 regions of 5 divisions each, the Northern, based in Calumet City, Illinois, and Southern, based in Jacksonville, Florida. Northern Region Divisions Great Lakes Division, based in Indianapolis, Indiana, Chicago Division, based in Calumet City, Illinois, Albany Division, based in Selkirk, New York, Baltimore Division, based in Baltimore, Maryland, Louisville Division, based in Cincinnati, Ohio. One line in the Northern Region travels into Canada, Montreal Subdivision from Massena, New York, to Beauharnois, Quebec. Southern Region Divisions Atlanta Division, based in Atlanta, Georgia, Huntington Division, based in Huntington, West Virginia; Nashville Division, based in Nashville, Tennessee; Florence Division, based in Florence, South Carolina; Jacksonville Division, based in Jacksonville, Florida. Unit trains. CSX operates the Juice train, a collective name for train nose. Q740 and Q741, Q743, and Q745 which consists of Tropicana cars that carry fresh orange juice between Bradenton, Florida, and the Greenville section of Jersey City, New Jersey. The train also runs from Bradenton to Fort Pierce, Florida, via the Florida East Coast Railway. In the 21st century, the Juice train has been studied as a model of efficient rail transportation that can compete with trucks and other modes in the perishable goods trade. Coke Express trains run between Pittsburgh and Chicago, and other places in the Rust Belt, carrying coke to industries, mainly steel mills. CSX also runs daily trash trains Q702 and Q703 from the Bronx to Philadelphia and then Petersburg, Virginia, where they interchange with NS. These trains consist of 89-foot flat cars loaded with 4 containers of trash. Another pair of trains, Q710 and Q711, originate in Kearney, New Jersey, and terminate in Russell, Kentucky. Another style of unit train is a local trash train, D765, that runs between the Maryland towns of Deerwood and Dickerson. The train runs daily except on Sundays. On holidays it sometimes runs twice a day. Trash is carried from Montgomery County's Shady Grove Transfer Station to a waste-to-energy plant located off the PEPCO lead to Myrant's Dickerson Generating Station. The trip is roughly 17 miles, and the train is made up of National Steel Car Company-built well cars, hauling 40-foot containers. The first NEMX equipment was built when the D765 first started operations in 1995. In recent years, the fleet has been somewhat upgraded, repainted, and new cars have been constructed. In the early days, the locomotives powering the train were a GP40-2/RDMT slug set, but currently the train can be upwards of 47 cars. The locomotives that now routinely power the train are a pair of MD-SD50s. Working with Union Pacific, CSX runs an extended-haul perishables train, Q090. Known by the railroad as the Apple Train, or Salad Shooter, the train runs from Wauhula, Washington, to Schenectady, New York. This train typically runs with 3 of Union Pacific's newest locomotives and has its extended haul inspection from Wauhula to Schenectady at Cleveland-Collinwood Yard on CSX headed in both directions. On the return trip, the train is labeled Q091. CSX modified its train handling rulebook to allow this train to use more power axles. In early 2012 the Salad Shooter derailed just a few miles northwest of Greenwich, Ohio. No injuries were reported in the incident. Locomotives. The vast majority of CSX locomotives have flashing ditch lights. CSX currently uses a blue and yellow paint scheme for its locomotives. More than 1,000 CSX locomotives are painted in the YN3 scheme, which debuted in 2002 on number 8503, an MD-SD50 that has since been downgraded to an SD50-2. CSX recently created a new paint scheme, known as YN3B or more informally Cost Cutter, which updates YN3 with the most recent CSX logo. The first unit to wear this scheme was ES44AH 950. Currently, CSX's ES44AH is $950 to $999 and $3,000 €3159 wear the scheme, along with several recently repainted older locomotives, the first of which was SD70 Mac 4719, which was repainted at the Huntington Locomotive Shops in September 2012. CSX has also obtained a few MDF-40PHs that were retired from Amtrak for executive office car service. All of the former Conrail locomotives in active service have been repainted in a CSX paint scheme. Former Conrail locomotives can be spotted by recognizing phase differences in engine models and numbering. Other spotting details can be inconsistent, but can include a number of the following: red marker lights, Leslie Model RS3L air horns. Former Conrail SD40-2s ride on flexible C trucks and have anti-climbers, ditch lights mounted beneath the anti-climber, headlights above the cab, and modified bright future paint with battery box faces painted yellow. Incidents: Howard Street Tunnel Fire, 2001, CSX 8888 incident, inspiration for the 2010 film Unstoppable, 2015 Mount Carbon train derailment, 2015 Tennessee train derailment, 2012 Ellicott City train derailment, 2 killed. Rail yards Hump yards In hump yards, trains are slowly pushed over a small man-made hill as cars are uncoupled at the crest of the hill and allowed to roll down the hump into the appropriate tracks for outbound trains. Atlanta, Georgia Tilford Yard, Avon, Indiana Avon Yard, Birmingham, Alabama Boyles Yard, Buffalo, New York Frontier Yard, Cincinnati, Ohio Queensgate Yard, Cumberland, Maryland Cumberland West Hump, Hamlet, North Carolina Hamlet Yard, Louisville, Kentucky Osborne Yard, Nashville, Tennessee Radney Yard, Selkirk, New York Selkirk Yard, Walbridge, Ohio Stanley Yard, Waycross, Georgia Rice Yard, Willard, Ohio Willard Yard. CSX also operates numerous trains to and from Oak Island Yard, in Newark, New Jersey, which is operated by Conrail Shared Assets Operations on its and Norfolk Southern's behalf. CSX operates 2 pairs of daily trains to from Oak Island, Q433 and Q434 coming from and going to Selkirk, along with Q300 and Q301 to and from South Philadelphia. Flat yards In flat yards, a locomotive pulls and pushes cars to assemble a train. Baltimore, Maryland Curtis Bay Yard, Seawall Yard, Davidson Yard, Locust Point Yard, Bayview Yard, Penn Mary Yard, Mount Clary Yard, Mount Winans Yard, Grays Yard, Hagerstown, Maryland, Hagerstown Terminal, Riverdale, Illinois Bar Yard, Dearborn, Michigan Regina Yard, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Wyoming Yard, Holland, Michigan, Waverly Yard, Garrett, Indiana, Garrett Yard, Evansville, Indiana Howell Yard, Russell, Kentucky Russell Yard, Loyal, Kentucky, Loyal Yard, Bronx, New York, Oak Point Yard, Watertown, New York Massey Yard, East Syracuse, New York DeWitt Yard, Rochester, New York Goodman Street Yard, North Bergen, New Jersey, North Bergen Yard, North Haven, Connecticut Cedar Hill Yard, Framingham, Massachusetts Nevins Yard, Wilmington, Delaware Willsmere Yard, Richmond, Virginia Acre Yard and Fulton Yard, Clifton Forge, Virginia, Clifton Forge Terminal, Charlotte, North Carolina Pinoca Yard, Charleston, South Carolina Bennett Yard, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Cravens Yard, Greenwood, South Carolina Maxwell Yard, Columbia, South Carolina Case Yard, Savannah, Georgia Southover Yard, Columbus, Ohio Parsons Yard, Dayton, Ohio Needmore Yard, Middletown, Ohio North Excello Yard, Hamilton, Ohio New River Yard, Toledo, Ohio Walbridge Yard, Akron, Ohio, Akron Hill Yard, Lordstown, Ohio, Goodman Yard, Cleveland, Ohio Collinwood Yard and Clark Avenue Yard, Newcastle, Pennsylvania, Newcastle Yard, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, Woodbourne Yard, Baldwin, Florida, Baldwin Yard, Jacksonville, Florida, Moncrief Yard, Duval Yard, Bush Yard, Export Yard, Tampa, Florida, Yeoman Yard, Rockport Yard, Lakeland, Florida, Winston Yard, Mulberry, Florida, Mulberry Yard, Orlando, Florida, Taft Yard, Wildwood, Florida, Wildwood Yard, Hillier, Florida, Hillier Yard, Washington, D.C., Benning Yard, Kearney, New Jersey, South Kearney Yard, Croton, New York, Croton West Yard, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Rocky Mount Yard, East St. Louis, Illinois, Rossa Lake Yard. Intermodal yards equals. This is an incomplete list of all intermodal terminals operated by CSX Intermodal Terminals, Incorporated. Port Newark Elizabeth Marine Terminal includes 2 facilities operated by Express Rail: Little Ferry, New Jersey, Little Ferry Yard, Kearny, New Jersey; South Kearny Yard, East Syracuse, New York; DeWitt Yard, Bedford Park, Illinois; Bedford Park Yard, North Baltimore, Ohio; Northwest Ohio Intermodal Terminal, Atlanta, Georgia; Halsey Yard, Fairburn, Georgia; Fairburn Terminal, Hilliard, Ohio; Columbus Van Yard, Salisbury de Valleyfield, Quebec, Canada; Valleyfield Terminal, Worcester, Massachusetts; Worcester Terminal, DeWitt Yard, Syracuse, New York; Nashville, Tennessee; Nashville, Baltimore. MD, Port of Baltimore, Cincinnati, OH, Cleveland, OH, Mobile, AL, Winter Haven, FL, Jacksonville, FL, Tampa, FL, Savannah, GA, Chicago, Illinois; 59th Street, Indianapolis, in Evansville, Indiana; Howell Yard, New Orleans, Louisiana; Gentilly Yard. NASCAR sponsorship. In 2013, CSX's Play It Safe campaign promoting safety near railroad tracks signed on as a sponsor for the number 34 driven by David Ragan of Front Row Motorsports in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. This sponsorship has continued with new driver Brett Moffitt. Gallery. See also: CSX milepost prefixes, History of railroads in Michigan, List of CSX transportation lines, List of CSX transportation predecessor railroads, Royalex, Union Pacific Railroad. References. External links: CSX official website, CSX route map, CSX history, CSX dispatcher code cross-reference table, new intermodal facility in Quebec.